Welcome to the Surrendered Strength Radio. As Christian men, we are called to surrender our lives to Jesus. To surrender to Jesus means to give in, not to give up. We are called to use our strengths, abilities, and opportunities to grow and prosper. We are called to strengthen ourselves, our families, and our communities. We are called to encourage and lift up our brothers in Christ. We are called to honor and glorify God in all things. To surrender our strengths, we must live to a higher standard. We must live with strength, courage, and honor, to love God and to love others as ourselves. This is Surrendered Strength. What's up, men? It's Nyland from SurrenderedStrength.com, and you are listening to another episode of the Surrendered Strength Radio. And today I am excited to have Kevin Hill from Act Like Men 365 on, and he should be coming any minute. Just trying to figure out my camera here. Let's see. I just sent him the invite, so we'll just kind of hang out and wait for him to jump on. And then just a reminder, check out SurrenderedStrength.com and get connected there, where you can get more information on how to live a surrendered life and how to use your strength. The mission for Surrendered Strength is to strengthen and encourage men to honor God. There is a need in our world, in our lifetime, in this day that has to be filled. And if not us, then who? Who are we going to let lead our children if we don't lead as godly men? Who are we going to show the community what it means to be men of strength, men of courage, and men of honor, if it's not us? So we need more men to step up to the plate, to again live by strength, courage, and honor, physically, mentally, spiritually. I'm excited to talk with Kevin. He is another man that is really just trying to get more men to act like men of God. And as the name says, Act Like Men 365, he is trying to help men live a life of biblical manhood. So again, I'm excited to have him.
Hey, what's up? I'm still trying to join on my computer.
All right.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Here we go. Here we go.
Getting it?
Yeah, I'm just sending it over to my email real quick. There we go.
Perfect.
All right. So
I'm still learning all the Zoom stuff myself.
Oh man, I spend probably half of every day on Zoom.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can teach me some stuff.
I would have thought I'd gotten better at it by now. But yeah, there's a few things to know about it, but it's all right. All right, Here we go. All right. Sweet. So yeah, all kinds of fun stuff you can do. Like we use a ton of backgrounds for work, and I got to where I would drop off of calls and I wanted to still kind of be there.
Yeah.
So I made myself my background.
There you go. That's nice. I'm gonna have to try that someday.
But yeah, so you can do all kinds of stuff.
So you say you spend most of your day or part of your day on Zoom. What is that for? Act Like Men, or is that for another?
That's for work.
All right.
Yeah,
What
no,
did,
I work full time as a recruiter. I currently recruit college age talent. I recruit interns.
really?
Yeah, in the IT space.
Nice.
And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's high speed. It's, man, these college kids are motivated,
Yeah.
but, it is a lot of fun. I really do enjoy it. Uh, but yeah, it's a lot of talking to these kids and a lot of them just trying to calm them down. Tell them, take a breath. Everything's okay. Trust me, we only called you because you've got a great resume.
Right.
You're going to be all right. But yeah, I spend a lot of time doing that.
Nice. So let me, for everyone listening and watching, I have Kevin Hill from Act Like Men 365. That's not his full-time job as we just learned, but he is still not yet. I like it. But he is still doing great work for the kingdom, and on his website he has Act Like Men is a vehicle for biblical manhood. So Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself and just let everyone know a little bit more of who you are and a little bit more about Act Like Men.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Hill. I became a believer when I was a teenager, but at that time, I really considered it more of a checkbox. I checked that off my list, and now I could go on and do the rest of the things I wanted to with the rest of my life. And I lived that way for a long time. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I got back in touch with a good friend of mine. He and I had lost touch for a few years. He and I had actually gone to youth group together in high school. So we've known each other for about 30 years or so. And I got back in touch with him, and he'd been pastoring his own church for about 10 years at that point. And I started listening to his sermons online and started talking to him more. And he kind of thought like I did back then, that it was a mile marker that you passed, and that's it. And we started talking about how men are in popular culture, men are just considered to be all the problems. Any problem that's out there can be attributed to or comes back to men in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Well, you can't claim that men are the problem without acknowledging that also makes them the solution. And so we kind of started talking and putting together what would end up being the framework for Act Like Men, which actually came together as COVID hit. And I was living in Oklahoma City at the time, and I've been working from home since 2014, and so is my wife. So we didn't even notice. COVID starts coming, people start getting told they have to work from home. You're like, great, everybody's going to love this, and so I don't see what the big deal is. And then my neighbors started getting laid off. First it was a guy across the street, and then guy next door, and it was a lot of people. And as we were a part of that neighborhood, and the neighborhood would get together, and the guys would talk to each other, and we'd smoke some meat, and whoever we knew was having a tough time, we'd take him some meat, some brisket or some sausage or some whatever, and our wives would make sides. And so that's what it started with, was just feeding your neighbors. And then somebody needed. I lived in Oklahoma. It's windy all the time, and 40-mile-an-hour wind down here in Texas where I live now makes the news. 40-mile-an-hour wind in Oklahoma is Tuesday.
Yeah.
And but people need fence repair, and people needed other things that were harder to do in that season. And so we'd get together, and somebody would buy some wood, and somebody would provide some power tools, or somebody would provide, and different people would provide different parts of it. We'd get together, we'd go fix a fence, or we'd go, fix a roof, or whatever it was. And that really is what became Act Like Men. And it was, what we're called to do and be is much better, much more than what myself or most of the men that I know or knew were being at the time. And the First Corinthians verse 16, 13 and 14 summed it up for me. And that's where the name came up with, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, and let all that you do be done in love. And on my website, I kind of break down each little part of that mantra, that verse, and it's super simple. But like most simple things, it's really difficult. Nothing easy about it. That's 100% where it comes from. Is we want to start out by feeding our neighbors. Do the little things around the house, and we have some groups that we target: elderly and widows, homeless veterans, and then homes that have boys in them but no fathers.
Right.
And it's our whole group, our principles, our values, our mission all come from Scripture, but we're not technically a Scripture or a religious outreach group. We're a group that just is promoting volunteerism.
Right.
Now, everyone that participates is a believer, and so there's that, and we do get the chance to spread the gospel, but at the same time, that's not our mission. Our mission is to go out into the world and be different, to be that example and plant the seed that hopefully turns into something else. But that's just a little. Well, that's not a little. That's a lot about us. But we can be so much more. And I know for 30 years, while I was running around doing things my own way, I always felt like there was something more. And that's why I continued to do all the things that I was doing, is trying to feed that void.
Yep.
That can only be filled one way. And that's by, stepping into your purpose and into your relationship with Jesus, and walking that out, or at least trying to.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's a daily battle to just surrender and to walk with Christ. And it's, some days are better than others. That's just the way it's going to go.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes. So you kind of hit on it, but another thing that I got from your website, you basically simplified the whole idea of Act Like Men, and that is love God and love people. And hearing your story about just making meals and helping your neighbors out, that just reminded me of how important it is to have a small group of, or a small community that can come together and help each other, but also at the same time go and do things for the larger community.
Oh, certainly. And one of the things that's on the website, and I don't touch on it probably as much as I should, and the reason that I don't is purely that I don't feel qualified. And the part of it that's on the website, it's our number one mission is to make better men, to make better families.
Right.
That, and that's so important. Again, it's not something that I feel particularly qualified, because I know the kind of man and the kind of man I am on my bad days. And then the third step is to serve our neighbors and make the community better. but I've always said, I want to be a great dad. I've got a little girl, she's 2, she'll be 3 this summer, and I want to be a great dad. And as I look at that, I can't be a great dad without being a great husband,
Right.
and I can't be a great husband without being a good Christian. And um, you know, being a good dad is a heck of a lot easier than being a good husband, which is still a heck of a lot easier than being a good Christian. Um, so the work runs downhill, but it is work.
Yep. Absolutely. And you mentioned that you don't feel qualified, and
Oh yeah,
trust me, nobody does.
right.
But as believers, we have the example of Christ, so we don't have to be qualified. We just have to imitate and go off of his example.
Yeah, very true.
So
Yeah, my qualification comes straight from Christ. It has zero to do with my um, internal resume.
right. Absolutely. Now, it says the purpose of, well, hold on. We kind of already talked about the mission, but the purpose: we strive to return the kind of manhood that cares for himself, his family, and his neighborhood. Now, you were kind of touching on that with, being a good dad comes from being a good husband, comes from being a good Christian.
100%.
Is there any more you want to expand on that at all, or?
Well, my pastor is actually, like I said, he's one of my best friends. And this year, actually about the last year and a half, he became convicted as a pastor to just put it out there. No dressing it up, no softening the blow, just put it out there. And the response has been fantastic. Um, and by that I mean, if you're claiming uh, to be this Christian man, or to be a man who's following Christ, there are areas where there's visible proof of that. And whether that's the way you provide for your family, whether and that's in all the ways. That's it, not just physically and with your checkbook, but are you providing that example where your family watches you tithe 10% back to the church? Is it are you taking care of yourself physically? Are you showing the right priorities? Are you letting them see you in the word? Are you letting them see you live out the word? Because I don't care if you've got a Bible at home. I don't even care if you've got a well-used Bible at home. If nobody sees you in it and nobody can see it on you, it doesn't matter. It's you might as well not have one. And it all starts with family.
Right.
And again, that's the part where I feel least qualified to judge anyone, but it's also the place where I feel most convicted. I meet with a group of guys very regularly. Then we have a bigger, men's group that we get together monthly. We have steak nights and we have all kinds of things. And we try real hard to make sure that group is not just a social club.
Right.
You want to like everybody that's there. You want to get along, but you got to ask each other the hard questions. What are you looking at on your time online? What are you doing with your money? What are you doing with your free time? Are you binge watching whatever the latest thing is on Netflix that's full of skin flicks and everything else, or are you doing something for someone? And so we try real hard to have a good time with it and make it to where it's it's guys holding each other accountable.
Right. That's awesome that you guys have that. I know for me personally, that's something that has been missing in my life. The last I don't know how many years, but recently I've been able to connect with some guys online, and we've formed a group that's what it is. We can go to them, and just this morning out just send a video to them, say, hey, need some prayers, need some, I was just feeling some spiritual battle, and just knowing that those guys were there for me and praying, and I could share that with them is huge. But I also agree that we need that in person group that's gonna be watching, be there, not watching in a way that we're trying to watch you trip up, but just keeping you on the straight and narrow.
No, and man, that's a fine line. You get called to the carpet for something, and it's a very reflexive instinct to either go back at the person that called you out on it, or to divert. And well, maybe, but Jim over here, he was way worse. It's a difficult thing. And no part of it will ever be easy. It just comes with being fallen. And but yeah, the conviction and the direction our church, or my friend's a pastor, but I claim the church as my own. It's Compass Church in San Antonio.
Okay.
And it's, man, he's really, like I said, he's just putting it out there. And we're walking through Ephesians right now, and the first half of Ephesians is basically, these are all the great things that God's done for us. And the second half of it is that call. This is how your life should look if you're walking these things out. And it's basically the place. If you're wondering how a Christian should handle a life situation, you could probably find it in the second half of Ephesians.
Right.
But we can do better, and that's at every level. That doesn't just start with, hey, I noticed my neighbor's fence blew down, but it's not my fence.
Right.
It goes way beyond that. And the biggest part of it's the part nobody else is going to see. It's the part that happens in your head, in your heart, and in your home. And that's a true battle. You were talking about feeling a spiritual battle. My wife and I, we started up some counseling, and that's one of the things that I've realized is there's times when I feel it hard to be a spiritual leader in the home because I know who I am. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, that guy's not qualified to tell this wonderful woman, I need to stay back here and stay in my lane. But that's that spiritual battle,
right?
And trying to remember that you're new in Christ. So all those things that you feel like you're dragging with you, you're not, or you're not supposed to be. Which is, again, it's simple, super simple. Nothing about simple is ever easy.
There's a phrase that a mentor of mine uses, and it's so simple it's complicated.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Hey, the one thing I did want to touch on, there's several Bibles that are printed that when they do the same verse, the 1 Corinthians 16, 13 and 14, in place of act like men, they print it as be courageous. And that is wrong. the Greek word that it's translated from, and I go into this on the website, but the Greek word that it's translated from, and I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try to, but the word has a root that refers to adult males. So it makes those two distinctions. It's not just males, it's not boys, it's adults and it's men.
Really?
And so yeah, it's at the bottom of the first page on my website. It's just, you know, the Greek word, and it's but it is to behave as men. Now, be courageous can be a part of that,
Right.
But that is not the translation.
That's I did not know that.
Yeah, I cannot pronounce the Greek word. It's about 2.5 inches long.
Yeah.
But it's the root and everything is from adult male.
Right.
And it is, from what I've read, it is the only time in the Bible in Greek that word is used.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't speak Greek, so I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But from what I've read, it says it's the only time that it's used.
Right. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the Jesus called 12 men,
yeah,
to follow and to be his disciples. So it makes sense.
It absolutely does. It does. But I've had a couple messages and a couple, notes here and there that challenge that, and I'm like, absolutely not. It's it's this. It's but I try to do that as politely as possible, but
right.
No.
There's always going to be people that challenge you.
Right.
So the other day, I was listening to your last podcast.
Ooh, man, it's been a while.
Yes, that's all right. But in there, you said something that really caught my attention, and it was nothing brings people together faster than when we join up and serve others.
Right.
And that's just true. We could leave it at that. But would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Well, like I said, I spent the last 5 years in Oklahoma, and every year there are multiple tornadoes in Oklahoma. But there's also disasters around the country.
Right.
And so when there's a tornado in Oklahoma, the communities in Oklahoma rally, like it's a high school pep rally. I mean, they just flock to each other. But then at the same time, there's a hurricane that's going to hit Florida. The trucks are rolling in and sitting in Georgia or wherever, waiting for the hurricane to go through so that they can go provide. It's linemen to work on electricity. It's people to bring food. It's people to bring other supplies. And it's like that. It's not just from Oklahoma, but that's, I noticed a lot the 5 years that I was there. Probably because they don't have a lot of news going on, and that stuff makes the news all the time.
Right.
In Oklahoma. But, look around, look at the big things that hit. And when something hits, look at how many people show up to, pitch in, lend a hand, something.
Right.
And it's not just the people that show up to do the work. Like, a hurricane blows through and there's going to be debris and there's going to be physical work that needs to be done. But look at the people that show up to support the workers. The people that show up to, I can't fix your tree. I can't pull it off your house. I can't dry out your carpet. I can't do any of those things, but I can sit and listen to you.
Right.
It's every level of help. And so when we pull together to serve someone, unfortunately, it's generally when that someone's in a bad situation.
Right.
We don't do real well on the green through mid orange. We help when it hits red.
Right.
But when it hits red, people pull together, and it's people of of varying levels and types of faith. It's people of varying levels and types of income and means. Um, you just get a huge cross section of people when, you know, honest to goodness help is needed.
Right.
Um, and that's just a refreshing thing. And so, that's what part of this is trying to seek out, where in our small, in our community, because, this isn't something that I was going to do, big scale, like outside of basically the area that I can drive to.
Right.
Um, and that's just because this is an in-person kind of thing. This is somebody I know saying, "Hey, my neighbor had this happen. My cousin lives on the other side of the city, had this happen. Whatever it is," and then we can pull together and we can help out. Or, like I said, the groups that we specifically kind of really run to, which those underprivileged communities, the widows and elderly, veterans. You know, we know there are certain communities that always have some need,
Right.
and so there's always that outlet. But then we also look for those specific incidents or instances of, hey, we just heard about fill in the blank, and so service is an easy way to get people together. But unfortunately, it's also an easy way to stand out. That it seems the groups that give are the groups that always give. Um, and the groups that don't are the groups that don't.
Right.
And, you know, anyway, it's just it's a way to also stand out and it's unfortunately it's one of those times when sometimes the people that don't participate don't notice until they need help.
Right.
And then you show up for them the same way you showed up for everybody else. And that's when they say, why do you do this? What what's in it for you, or something like that.
Right.
And that's when you have the opportunity to share with them. I do this because this is grace, and this isn't cheap grace. This is real grace. This is
Right.
and this is a fraction of the grace that's been shown to me. And so yeah, that's why we're here.
Awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned that you talked about kind of that needle in the green and the orange and the yellow, and usually it's not until we're in the red that people are going to help. But if you look at the people who you help, it's not always a big disaster that people need help. The one thing that really caught my eye, or kind of touched on my heart, was the boys in fatherless homes.
Yep.
I've been a coach, wrestling and football coach in the past, and when I was getting into coaching and just kind of wanted to be a better coach, I was doing research and I learned a lot about the importance of needing men who are just mentors and in the lives of young men.
Yep.
And so that's one thing that really touched my heart, just because it's something that I've lived. But just talking about the widows and elderlies and veterans is, they might not be, or we might not see it as they're in the red and they need help, but they still need help.
Yeah, and that's another thing. With something like with veterans, with widows, with elderly, with boys without fathers in the homes, they could be in the red that we just don't see.
Right. True.
And it's an epidemic. The statistics on fatherless children altogether. I've never been a little girl. I don't know how to how that part
Right.
goes. I have one, Um, and but I know what it's like to be a little boy, and to where you look for to find those things when you're not finding them at home.
Right.
Um, and the statistics on it are heartbreaking. It's absolutely devastating. It's an absolute epidemic that very rarely gets talked about, and it's never addressed.
Right.
Um, you know, I'm going to step in it here, and I'm going to do it intentionally. You see on social media on Father's Day, and it happens on Mother's Day too, but on Father's Day, you'll see the single moms talking about, Happy Father's Day to me because I'm mom and dad. Like, you may be a fantastic mom, you may be an amazing mom, but
Yeah.
you're certainly not both.
Right.
You can't be.
Agreed.
Um, and I say that not as a slight to anybody or anything like that, but and I've seen single dads do it on Mother's Day, things like that. And I'm just like, you're not.
Right.
It's just not possible. And to say something like that just devalues something that's so important. I mean, I forget the actual number, and it's probably changed since I saw it last. But if a father is saved, the likelihood that his wife and children will also be saved is staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost a guarantee. But if the father's not, even if the mom is, even if the kids become, statistics say they're going to walk away from the church at some point.
Yeah.
It's and so many of our churches are do such a disservice. Um, and it's my favorite thing about the church that I go to. Compass Church here is amazing. And like I said, Pastor Aaron he's just putting it out there. There's no, you're not going to leave without being convicted of something.
Yeah.
You're not going to get to just, okay, that was great. I put my $5 or $10 we don't pass an offering plate, but metaphorically, I put my $5 in the plate and I sat through church. I'm good till next week. Absolutely not. It can't be that anymore.
Right.
And the times I remember going to church when I was a teenager, that's really what it was. It was on Wednesday and Sunday. I get to see this group of friends, and we get to hang out, and we get to probably have pizza or hot dogs or whatever we're going to do. I don't remember anybody in the church stopping and going, you boys should stop doing that. You boys should behave better than what you're behaving.
Right.
Never. Now, who's to say if it happened, I might have quit going to church. And maybe the thought was it's better to have them here than not have them here.
Right.
But either way, it's we have to take the chance.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm glad to be a part of a church that does that.
Yeah. I've done my fair share of church shopping, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've even, before COVID, there's a church in Colorado that I listened to, via podcast or whatever it was. And, with all the ones that I've listened to and gone to, the ones that put it out there are the ones that I'm like, I want to go back to here. I want to. So we definitely need more pastors, more men who are willing to, toe the line and say, this is how we need to act, and this is, the way we need to move forward.
100%. I did an interview with Jim Ramos. He founded and runs Men in the Arena months ago, and Now his is more of an outreach, more of, you can do stuff online with meeting with people and kind of organizing certain things. And he's written a couple books, and he, so he does that way. But it's about, you've got to get out of the stands and participate
Right.
in your faith. You've got to, you've got to take part in this. You cannot sit there and still claim, I'm a believer. These people who are, I don't need to go to a church to have a relationship with God, or nobody said you did, but you are called to be a part of the body. You are called to gather with the body. I get it. Churches, like good churches, are hard to find.
Right.
You've got your Olsteins and everybody else out there that are, I don't even know what he's preaching, and I've listened, I've tried, I sit and I watch it, and I'm just blown away by the lack of truth that I hear, and the lack of accountability.
Right.
And I mean, he's got however many tens of thousands of people show up to a, reconditioned basketball arena to, to fill his stadium, to fill the fans. And I mean, it breaks my heart, that's the popular church. And there's a ton of others. I don't know their names off the top of my head.
Right.
And I'm a Houston Astros fan, so I've actually passed by the Olstein building and all that, and, going to and from games from San Antonio. But yeah, it's just it's a hard thing to say, and like I said, simple's never easy, or very rarely easy, and it requires sacrifice. You've got to give up that free time. You may not know what's on Netflix or
Right.
Hulu or whatever service. You may just, I don't have any time for, whatever. It requires sacrifice. And man, the reward is just when you realize you've helped someone that truly needed help, and you don't have to start your own organization. You don't have to, do something like that. Go be a part of something. Go be part of the Hope Pregnancy Center, and talk to young girls that are in the most difficult situation they've ever been in, or go to the food pantry and bag up food, or go volunteer at anywhere.
Right.
Like, well, I'm not qualified. None of us are, like you said. Absolutely none of us. And about the time you decide you're going to take action is when you're going to hear the most in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a heck of a lot easier for Satan to derail you before you get up to speed.
Right.
Than once everything's going and there's other people that are walking along beside you, and holding you accountable, and checking in, and praying for you, and making sure that everything's going the way it's supposed to. That's when you're going to hear all those things that are, really, you're going to go listen to a pregnant teen who's considering what to do with this baby. You remember when you were her age, kind of thing, or the food pantry, or whatever. You're just, all that stuff's always going to be there. And like you said, none of us are qualified. That absolutely comes from grace.
Right. You just mentioned the voices that come and try and derail you. I heard that even tonight before this conversation. There's so many things I could be doing, and I could cancel and all this and that, but I'm not.
Right.
There's more important, or there's nothing more important than making sure that we have men that are spreading the gospel, that are following Jesus, and living a life that we are called to live.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, man.
No.
Everything about what we as men are asked to do is hard.
Right.
It's just hard, but it's what we were designed for.
Yep.
It's hook up the plow and just take the steps. It's that's it. You know, I hate to tell people, you're not the guy at the back, whipping the animal to move the plow. You're what the plow's hooked to.
Right. And yet, at the same time, we can turn to Jesus and
Right.
give him all of our pain, our struggle, our stress,
Yep.
and that yoke is lifted. I mean, yes, we still have to go through life. Yes, we'll still have trials and tribulations, but we there's a sense of relief and a release when we give it to Jesus.
Yeah, it's you know, yeah, like you said, the stuff we have to deal with is the hard stuff, but if we're doing it right, then we should be handing that heavy lifting over
Right.
um, more regularly than I obviously do.
You and me both.
But it just you're called to do the hard stuff,
Right.
and man, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and just looking at kids that are between like 10 and 15, little boys that are in that age group, we need this now more than ever.
Yeah. That's so true.
I need a generation of real men growing up to be around when my daughter's grown up.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's a selfish part of this too. It's the maybe the perspective or the whatever comes along with being a dad, and it took my wife and I 8 years to have her. We went through a lot of pretty low times trying to have this baby, and now that we've got her, when we were told we wouldn't, it's we're both that much more determined.
Right.
And plus it makes me a really old dad. There's not a lot of 43-year-olds with 2-year-olds out there.
Right.
But it's a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right. You mentioned that there may be a part of what we're doing, and the way that we're trying to live is maybe a little selfish.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to be better ourselves for our kids and for the people in our community. And that's part of what I've kind of learned and based surrendered strength around. The first commandment, or the greatest commandment that we're given, is to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul. And the second part is love others, or love our neighbors as ourselves. And when I read that, we have to love ourselves first,
Right,
before we can love anybody else. And it really comes down to allowing God to fill our cup, and then allowing the overflow of what God pours into us into everything else.
Yeah. So, that's so true. And my friend Aaron, my pastor, he always puts it as a sponge. Whatever you're soaking into your sponge, if it's the word, if it's the Holy Spirit, when times come that are hard and they squeeze that sponge, that's what'll come back out.
Right.
If it's you, then when you squeeze that, what's going to come out is that ego, that pride, that anger.
Right.
And there are a lot of men that like I said, I feel unqualified to do a lot of things, but there are a lot of men who feel unworthy on a personal level. I was blessed with many men's helpings of ego. So when I hear love your neighbor as yourself, for me, instead of going, well, I've got to love myself first, man, I've got that in spades. I look at it and I go, I got to love my neighbor like I love me. Like, that's a lot. That's
Right.
I'm on the other end of that spectrum going, ooh, man, I got to be nice to that neighbor. You know,
Right.
that's I'm like that's a lot of affection right there. So, you know, either way you look at it, that's a hard one.
Right.
But yeah, loving yourself enough to take care of yourself. And you know, some of that, and my Aaron and I were talking about this as well. Some of that is taking it requires time to take care of yourself and to love yourself. And I don't know about you, but as a husband, as a dad, as an employee, as a, you know, just all whatever hat it is, all of those take time as well. And so when I take time for myself to go to the driving range or to go to the shooting range or to go to build something in the garage, there's a certain amount of guilt I feel associated with that because I know there are other things to benefit these people that are around me that I could have been doing.
Right.
But it's absolutely one of those things that you know requires intentionality.
Yep.
And you have to set time aside and schedule it and do it, and it's very, very important. That's been a hard one for me this season, you know, for a little bit, you know, but you know, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it definitely is difficult with younger children. I have a son that's going to be 3 next month. So, and then
Okay.
another one that just turned 4 and a 9-year-old. So my time
Okay.
gets shredded real quick.
Yeah, yeah, it gets divided up for you.
Yes, absolutely.
So
We've been going for about an hour, and
have we really?
yeah,
Oh yeah, we have.
when we have good conversations, time flies. I've
It
noticed
does.
that.
It does.
So I want to touch on just a couple more things, and
Sure.
then I'll let you go so you can do your thing, and so I can go to bed. I don't know what time your bedtime is, but I like to be to bed early.
It should be better than what it is. Actually, it's better than what it's been. I've tracked my sleep, and I had a doctor's appointment for the first time in a long time a couple weeks ago, and I showed her. I was like, my watch tracks when I sleep, and my average bedtime was like 3:30 in the morning,
Whew.
and then I'm up at 7:30 for work, and she's like, you have to go to bed by 1, and I've made it almost every day. Almost, I think I missed one since I've got the order from the doctor. But yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to bed about the time that I'm wanting to wake up. So I like to be to bed early.
Oh man! All right. Well, what do we got?
All right. So you made a comment on an Instagram post. You said Christ-focused Christianity. That
Yeah.
I was just talking about Christ-focused Christianity.
Right.
Now, if you read that, at least when I read it, I'm like, well, what other way is there?
Exactly.
But there's definitely different ways. So I would love for you to touch on that.
Yeah. Well, and I hate that it's even a thing that I felt like I should say,
Right.
because Christianity, by definition, is focused on Christ,
Right.
but it's not practiced that way. You know, so much Christianity, and I would never presume to say somebody believes and somebody doesn't, and whatever. I can only say this is what we're called to do, and you're called to behave and live in a certain way, and you either are or you're not.
Right.
And so, Christ focused Christianity is just it's just that. I mean, I'm a sportsman. I shoot, I hunt, and so when you're focused, when you aim, that's your target. If you're a sailor, you set your sight, you set your compass on something.
Right.
As a Christian, it has to be on Christ. It can't be on any other thing. And so yeah, saying Christ focused Christianity is absolutely redundant, but absolutely necessary.
Right. Yeah, it's when I
And
read
I
it,
hate that it is. I really do. I hate that it is. And like I said, for the longest time, I was the person you need to tell that to.
yeah.
But it's where we are.
So I grew up Catholic, and
Okay. That's where all the guilt comes from.
Yes, exactly. But as I was growing up and got older and started kind of seeing, Catholic, Lutheran,
yeah,
and all the other whatever the word is for it, I started realizing that, first and foremost, they're all very similar, but at the same time, I felt like there was something missing, and
sure.
and it was Christ. And in my opinion, in the Catholic Church that I grew up in, we had a statue of Mary, which
really?
there's probably a lot of them that do, but it's like, there was Jesus on the cross also, but we also had a statue of Mary, and it just seemed like we were focusing a lot of attention on her when, yes, she did a good thing, but
right.
she's not the Christ. So
yeah, I mean, she's an important person in the story,
right,
but she's not the main character. She's not the lead.
right.
No, I get it. That's yeah, it's like I said, when I was a teenager in church, I don't ever remember leaving church feeling like, man, that sermon was right at me. That sermon was about how I could be better, or about how Christ is example to follow, the only one, and you're either following or you're not.
Right.
It's not degrees of not following, like on a compass. It's you're either going with or against, or not with or against, but either toward or away.
Right.
And so, yeah, I get it. That's man, that's remarkable. I didn't know that they had statues. I've been in Catholic churches as like a tourist, but never, for like a service or something. And so I guess I never noticed that.
Yeah, that's for whatever reason, there's a lot of focus on Mary.
Okay.
And it's interesting to say the least.
Huh. I can see that.
And
right, what else do you got?
I only have one more thing.
Okay.
And on your website, you have that, an outreach page, and you're going to have links. And you mentioned a little bit ago that your focus is going to be more in the area where you can drive. So talk about what you're out, or give us a sneak peek of what the outreach links and stuff is going to look like.
Yeah. So we're meeting. I am meeting with my local congressman next week, or his office. Probably won't be the congressman. We've applied for 501c3 status, and we're kind of, there are certain things that are built around that happening. I don't fundraise currently because that's not something that's come through, and with the climate we're in, I have no idea if or how it will.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that we do. So until that happens, we're real small. We're just the group of guys that I was talking about. We find either pockets of people or individual situations to kind of dive in to help. But yeah, the goal of that is to, once that happens, to be kind of a I don't want to say a safety net for the people in our area, but to be kind of a, maybe just a light of hope.
Right.
Just this thing happened, but man, you guys were here to come and pick up the slack, and what I'd like to see as I would move toward doing this full time is, I'd like to see a couple guys that are mechanically inclined. So the single mom that her car breaks down because it's just a hunk of nothing.
Right.
We can help that single mom and show her son while we're doing it, what we're doing, and teach him and show him along the way.
Right.
Help not just 2 or 3 neighbors in each of our communities, but be able to citywide, put together and do events where we can go to areas and, we're going to serve food, we're going to clean up the park, we're going to do these things where it can be more of an attraction.
Right.
To kind of spread the word, but also to just be a place where people can come and go, why are you doing this? And then have some people there that can answer those questions.
Right.
So that's kind of the vision. That's why there's links are to come on the outreach page, is because that'll be for when we do some bigger things that people will be able to at that point go and, okay, I want to be a part of. You're going to do this, or we may partner with another group that's here in town.
Right.
I'm I've been a big Spurs fan for a long time. I'd love to be able to partner with somebody from the Spurs and say, hey, we're going to do this, and they lend their name to it, or something like that. I actually went to high school here in San Antonio before I moved away and did all the stuff that I did. But when I was in high school, David Robinson was here. And David Robinson was, it's just fitting that he was in the Navy, because he is the epitome of being a lighthouse of hope, and just a solid Christian man to be able to kind of be a role model in this city.
Nice.
So that's the plan. That's kind of where we're headed. But yeah, we're hopeful that when we meet with the congressman's office, that they'll be able to help things along, or at least explain it in a way that we can know kind of what to expect.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I think you've got a lot of good things going, and you're going to be doing a lot of good things moving forward. And I am absolutely glad that I have met you and had this conversation. Yeah. And if there's any way that I can help spread the word anymore, or I'd be glad to help.
Certainly.
We definitely need more men to follow Christ and live as he has showed us how to live.
Yeah. And like I said, what we're focused on is kind of external, kind of outreach type stuff. I like, I go through your website. I went through your Instagram when we first connected, especially your webpage. What you're doing with coaching men where they are, and meeting men where they are, and like I said, there's the man in his heart, there's the man in his home, and then there's the community part. We're kind of community focused, touching on those others as we do the work, but you're really addressing those first two, and that's really where the heavy lifting is. And so that's kingdom work, man. That's that. So I'm super appreciative, for your acknowledgement, but like I said, you're doing the heavy lifting.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's not It's not me that's doing the lifting. It's
Isn't
all
that the truth?
it's all God and Jesus, and I'm just happy to be here and happy that I have actually found something that has meaning and
Yeah.
is worthwhile, because what I was doing before, I mean, my full-time job that's for another conversation at this time, but this is something that actually gets me excited and has some meaning. So
I understand 100%. So,
well, Kevin,
yeah.
Thank you again for jumping on and just having this conversation. And
My pleasure.
We will be in touch, and I will give you the final word. Whatever you want to let the men know, and also let people know where they can get in touch with you and connect with Act Like Men.
Okay. Well, first, where you can connect with us, I'm on all the usual suspects as far as social media goes. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, Act Like Men 365. As far as the final word goes, love God and love people. I mean, you can sum up the Bible in 4 words. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. I mean, find a church that is just telling it like it is, and commit to it. It doesn't matter if there's 10 people in the seats or 10,000. Commit to it. And when I say commit to it, if you're not providing for the church in some way, if you're not part of the greeting team or tithing or what tithing, I mean, doesn't matter what else you're doing, you should be giving back to the church. But if you're not investing in either that church or another organization that's fulfilling the calling, then you need to be. It's absolutely required, and you cannot have faith without works. It's we have to get off the sidelines, especially as men, and when we do, everyone else will follow.
Right.
So be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, and let all that you do be done in love.
All right, man. That was Kevin Hill from Act Like Men 365, and he nailed it. There's 4 words that sum up the Bible and sum up how we are called to live, and that is love God and love people. And men, there's many things that we can do, but there's only one way to do them all, and that is out of love. So men, I encourage you to continue to love yourself, love your neighbor, and love your God. Thanks for listening to the Surrendered Strength Radio. Connect with me at surrenderedstrength.com. Be sure to share this podcast with other brothers in Christ, family, and friends. Until next time, remain strong, courageous, and honorable, loving God and loving others as yourself.